Alright folks, welcome to week 2. This is your module 2 of our kind of distance learning. So last week you learned about angles, including angle names, as well as a couple of relationships such as complementary angles and supplementary angles. So this week we're going to keep moving with angle relationships, so we're just going to take that knowledge that you learned last week and just keep applying it and expanding it. Okay. So, just as a reminder, remember last week we talked about complementary angles, right? Which remember means that they add to 90. And we had supplementary, which they add to 180. Right? So this is just review, right, from the stuff that we talked about last week. Okay. So now moving forward, we are going to first talk about what we call adjacent angles. So the first thing we're going to talk about is adjacent angles. Well, if you've ever heard the word adjacent, right, remember adjacent just means next to. And then we talked about angles last week. So adjacent angles are angles that are next to each other. But our formal definition is angles with a common side. Okay, so it's two angles that are next to each other and they have the same side. So if we were looking at a picture, we can call this angle ABC. And then if we had another angle that was here, so angle ABCD and angle CBD are adjacent. Right, so these two angles have a common side, and this side BC is the common side that they share. And so it just makes them right next to each other. So examples that you might see with that. So I'll tell you that this, let's kind of stay with our same letters. Let's say the angle ABC is 46 degrees, and then let's say angle CBD, let's say that one is 37 degrees. I might say find the measure of angle ABD. Well, when we have adjacent angles, right, this angle ABC and then this angle CBD make up this entire angle of ABD. So to find this, right, if we have adjacent angles, when we add them together, they will equal the entire thing, right, which kind of makes sense. If we take two smaller pieces and put them together, it's going to give us the whole. So take angle ABC and we're going to add angle D. And give us our larger angle of ABD. So we can say that 46 plus 37 is going to equal angle ABD. which means angle ABD is going to be 83 degrees. The other thing that might happen is, let's say, if P, Q, S, and R, and let's say that we know SQR is 39 degrees, and that we know this whole thing, PQR, is 111 degrees. And we want to find the measure of angle PQS. So we know the entire thing is 111, and we know that this piece is 39. Well, we know to get the entire thing, right, angle, switch colors, angle PQS plus angle SQR has to equal our entire thing. This plus this angle is going to give us the whole thing. And if we fill in what we know, right, SQR we know is 39 degrees, PQR is 111 degrees. So we know that this plus that is 111, so to figure out what this piece is, now we just have a simple equation, so we can subtract 39 on each side. And we're left with angle PQS is equal to 72 degrees. Okay. The last way that you might see this, I guess not the last way, but the last kind of example we're going to do right now. Let's say we have G, E, O, and M. We know that this is 44 degrees. This is 2x, and the whole thing is going to be 70. And we want to find the value of x. Okay, well, we're going to go through our same process. We know that when we add our angles together, it'll give us the bigger angle. So right here, plus OEM is going to give us our larger angle. Well, GEO we know is 44 degrees. OEM is 2x. M is 70. Well, now we have a normal equation like we've been working with all year. So remember, to get x by itself, we're going to start with what's farthest away. So I'm going to get rid of this positive 44, and the opposite of a positive 44 is negative, so we'll subtract. So we have 2x equals 26. 2 times x, so to get rid of the 2, I want to divide, and I get x equals 13. So what's going to start happening this week and moving into next week is you're going to have to take your knowledge of solving 1- and 2-step equations like we did earlier in the year, and you're going to have to start applying that into this knowledge of angles that you started building last week. Okay, so now what I want you to do is go ahead and pause this video copy down these two examples, and I want you, for number 1, to try and find the measure of angle TAH, which is right here. For number 2, I want you to find the value of x. So go ahead and pause this video and try these two examples. When you're done, you can hit play, and I'll have the answer screen. Okay, so after finishing those examples, for number 1, you should have gotten that TAH is 86 degrees. For number 2, you should have gotten that x is 18.75. So that is kind of the basics of adjacent angles. They're just angles that are next to each other. Right? And when you put them together, so when we put this angle and this angle together, it's going to equal this entire thing. So building off of that, the next thing that we have is something called a linear pair. Okay, well, linear just means line, and if you have a pair of something, that means you have two things. Linear pair is two adjacent angles that make a line. So if, let's say we have ABD, and then we have an angle adjacent to it, DBC. When I put these two angles together, notice how it forms this line right here. So angle ABD and angle DBC are linear because they're two adjacent angles. They're two angles that are next to each other that form this line. And last week we talked about when we have two angles that are forming a line, where that means they are supplementary. So if we know that these two are a linear pair, and let's say we know that ABD is 74 degrees, and we want to find the measure of angle DBC. Well, if they're a linear pair, that means both of them together add to 280, right? So ABD plus DBC is going to equal 180 degrees because the linear pair is supplementary. So we know they go to 180. Well, ABD is 74. I don't know why I can't write this angle correctly. DBC. So now equation like we had earlier. So subtract 74 on each side. And we're going to get that DBC is 106 degrees. Alright, so a linear pair is two adjacent angles that make a line. Okay, so that means that they are going to be supplementary. Actually, I'm going to change what we're doing. Alright, so we're going to, let's look at this picture. Let's say I have one line going this way, and one line going that way. You can label them A, B, C, D, and E. Let's say that we know angle ABC is let's go with 110 degrees. So ABC is 110 degrees. We want to find the measures of all the other angles. Well, if we're looking at this, ABC and CBD are a linear pair. Right? Because they form this line right here, so that means that they add to 180 degrees. So we know that angle ABC plus angle CBD equals 100. C is 110. We don't know CBD. So we have 110 plus this angle is going to equal 180, so treat it just like our equation. We're left with angle CBD is equal to 70 degrees. So now we can go back and fill this in with 70 degrees. Well, then if we're looking at it, and we look at CBD, and we need to find DBE, well, these two angles form, so they're also a linear pair. So that means angle CBD plus angle DBE add to 180 degrees. Well, we know that CBD is 70. So to solve for DBE, we'll subtract 70 on each side. And you're left with angle DBE is equal to 110 degrees. In our picture. Well, then lastly we have this angle, and there's a couple of ways that we can get it. The first is that we can look at these two and see that they form this, so they're going to be a linear pair. Or we can look at these two angles and see that they form this line, so they're going to be a linear pair. And so we can use either of these to get to this last angle, right? So 110 plus something has to get this to be 180. You're probably going to hear my dogs in the background in a minute, so I apologize for that. Or we can say 110 plus something has to get these two to be 180. But we've already done that work here, right, when we found this angle. So since we know 110, this angle here, the only thing left for it to be is 70 degrees. So what I'm going to do, just so that's a little cleaner as I'm going to redraw that picture with all the measurements in it. So we were given only one angle, and just by knowing our knowledge of linear pairs, right, we are able to find the 3 missing angles in the picture. Now, you might notice a different relationship if we look at those 2 angles. You might notice they're the same, as well as those 2 angles are the same. Okay. When angles are the same measurement, okay, that means they are congruent. So when angles are the same measurement, that means that they're going to be congruent. Okay, so congruent is just our fancy word for saying that 2 angles are the same thing. And the symbol for that is an equal sign with a little squiggle on top. So if at any point you were told that 2 angles are congruent, that means that they have the exact same measurement. Now, there's another name for these angles, or those what we call verticals. And they are angles that are directly across each other when 2 lines meet. So in this picture we have ABC and then DBE. Are vertical because they are directly across. And we also have these angles that are directly across from each other. So angle CBD and angle ABE are vertical because they are directly across from each other when these lines meet. And something about vertical angles is that vertical angles are always congruent, which we can see in the example that we solved earlier. Right? Notice our 2 vertical angles here are the same measurement, they're congruent to each other, and then these vertical angles are also congruent to each other. Right? So if you have a figure like this, right, there's a couple of ways to solve it. You can use knowledge of linear pairs. Now you can also use your knowledge of vertical angles in order to go and solve. It is going to be everything for this notes. Right, so after you copy this down, you can move on to step 2, which is going to be your practice activities. So pick your activities, and whenever you're ready, your weekly check. If any questions, come to my office hours today at 11:30. You can any time between 11:30 and 12:15. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or go back through the notes with you, or discuss any of these activities with you. If you take your skills check and you're not feeling about it, just send me an email and we can look at it and talk about it, and then I can open that for you to try again. Okay? Other than that, have a week, and I will see you later.